Hi there, welcome back. We're going to be having a look at the All Island Strategic Rail Review once again. And this time we're going to be having a look at rail freight, or freight in general. So, rail freight is something of a niche activity on Ireland's railways today, that's for sure. You really don't see much of it. The railway currently supports some outbound freight flows from Mayo to Waterford and mining products from Tara Mines to Dublin. I think those are the only ones I've seen are the Tara Mines freight going to Dublin, but actually I think at the moment Tara Mines is closed down. Um, Temporarily, indefinitely closed. I think is the way it was described. Because I think it was considered no longer viable at the moment anyway. It may reopen again, and if the prices of what are they mining there? It was like zinc and magnesium or something. Yeah, let's have a look. Okay, yes. So Tara Mine is a lead and zinc mine, not magnesium. And it is currently closed, but this RTE article said they're hoping to open it next year. So, well, we'll see how that goes. So, freight flows from Mayo to Waterford and mining products from Tara Mines to Dublin, as well as inbound intermodal freight from Dublin and Waterford to the northwest. However, the competitiveness of rail freight has been significantly eroded in recent decades, and volumes have fallen from 4 million cubic tons in 1981 to 0.3 cubic million tons today. Wow, that is quite a drop, which is less than 1% of the modal share. Wow. Yeah, because the country's only grown since then, and if it's less than a tenth of what it used to be, wow, that is quite a significant drop. As figure 16 below shows, in 2019, Ireland recorded the lowest level of rail freight mode share in the European Union, excluding member states that have no railways. Northern Ireland, which is accounted for in the UK figure below, currently has no regular rail freight operations. We'll have a look at that in a second. Well, let's have a look now, actually. So it excludes member states that have no railways. I wonder which ones it does include then. Or actually, which ones would that exclude? That'd be like Malta, right? Maybe Cyprus. Ireland, then Greece, Spain, Netherlands. Netherlands is low. I would have thought they'd be a lot. Oh, maybe no. That makes sense actually, because they have all those canals. They can just send them by barge. Luxembourg. I would have thought they'd be a bit better. UK, France, Denmark, Italy, Belgium, Portugal, Norway, Germany. Would have thought Germany would be higher, because they're a really big manufacturing not company, country. Bulgaria, Croatia, Poland, Czechia, Hungary, Romania, Finland, Sweden, Austria, Slovakia, Switzerland. I would have thought Switzerland would be higher as well. Well, I say higher. They're like the fifth, like the fifth, yeah, fifth largest rail modal share. So it's not insignificant, really. The ones that surprise me though are the ones that are at the top. So Slovenia, Estonia, and then Latvia and Lithuania. I know, uh, Latvia has some what are they called, like iron forges or iron smelteries. Um, and before the Russian invasion of Ukraine, they were getting iron ore shipped in from I think Russia or maybe Belarus, and then that stopped. So some of those smelteries shut down, but that would have all come in on rails for sure. I wonder how much of, like, obviously these are very high modal shares, but I wonder how much of that is just like raw materials. Because I would imagine in uh larger European countries like Germany, it'd probably be a similar amount by of raw materials by rail, but then like consumer goods might be more popular in trucks. I don't know. I'd be interested to see more of that, but they probably won't include it here. It's just not really in the scope of this review. There are several factors driving this trend, including changes in freight and logistics patterns, the development of Ireland's motorway network, and many of the railway's infrastructure constraints outlined in chapters 2 and 3. Well, we've already seen them. You can go back and watch those videos if you want. The cost of rail freight versus road freight, including relatively high track access charges leveled on freight operators, is also an issue. Yeah, I mean, you want to make some money off of them if they're using your rails, but you want to make it attractive for freight operators as well. One way you could do that is by putting greater tolls on motorways, but that'll probably just anger them more than anything, and cause like boycotts or protests. And you don't want to lower the cost too much on the rail, otherwise you're going to be subsidizing them, and it's going to cost you more money than you're getting back. It'll be interesting finding a balance between them. Despite the decline and challenges, the Éireann Óiread Éireann Rail Freight 2040 strategy aims to grow the market of rail freight towards levels seen in Europe and provides a framework for achieving this ambition while also helping Ireland meet its environment and sustainability goals. This review has explored opportunities for increasing rail freight's market share so that it is broadly comparable to similar countries and recognises that future rail freight growth will come from modal shift rather than organic growth. Yeah. This will help reduce carbon emissions, improve air quality, and reduce road noise and congestion, and support regional economic development. Yeah, definitely. I think that point about modal shift is key. You can call it modal shift, you can call it inducing demand toward railways and away from roads. It's the same thing. But the point is to move those containers away from trucks and towards trains and get them on the rails. Yeah, so I guess they'll probably tell us a bit more about their plans for modal shift. I wonder if it'll include increasing tolls and motorways for trucks. It's certainly an option to discourage the use of motorways, but I don't know if it'll necessarily encourage the use of rails. Maybe discount the rails slightly and then increase the motorway cost slightly, or even you could encourage you can encourage like transport companies to make contracts with Éireann Óiread Éireann, where if they're they say, okay, we'll put a certain amount of our cargo onto rails instead of the road, and then you give us like a little bit of a discount on the freight charges. There are also opportunities to develop inland rail freight terminals to serve the largest urban and industrial freight areas across the island, including areas in Northern Ireland. These large multi-purpose rail freight interchange and distribution centres would be ideally linked to both the rail and strategic road networks. They could play a role in helping reverse rail freight's recent decline on the island of Ireland. There are also opportunities to improve the efficiency of transferring freight between rail and sea transport. Currently, the rail network can only accommodate load-on, load-off cargo movements, but some European railways can also accommodate roll-on, roll-off. I don't know what those are. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at that. Okay, I found some Wikipedia articles. So load-on, load-off, or as it's also called lift-on, lift-off, involves using cranes to load and unload the cargo. Whereas roll-on, roll-off are designed to are cargo ships where the cargo can just be driven on and off the ship on tracks or wheels. So yeah, this would be a far more efficient and fast process, roll on, roll off. So then you can just roll them all off, roll them all on. Easy peasy. So approach. The Iarnard Aran 2040 rail freight strategy proposes to increase Ireland's rail freight mode share in line with other European countries. As we saw above, yeah, we are quite the outlier. Even just somewhere in the middle would be good. Given Ireland's geographical context as an island situated some distance from the core rail freight corridors of Europe, it seems reasonable to target the level of mode share that is currently achieved by other island and/or peninsula railways in Europe. This ranges from 3% in Greece to 30% in Sweden, but most countries in this category appear to lie in the 5 to 10% range. This review has therefore considered how the railway could support a level of rail freight mode share comparable to Western European countries, around 10%. So who's at 10%? 10% is like Luxembourg, France, Denmark. Okay, yeah, I think we. Oh yeah, Denmark is a partly island nation. So I think that that's a good comparison. Around 10%, which reflects an ambition to use rail freight to decarbonize the island's transport system. Yeah, so while we can't, ship things by rail to any other countries, we can at least ship things internally to ports by rail. This will likely require interventions to support higher outbound flows, which tend to focus on the south coast ports, and higher inbound intermodal flows, which are likely to target the island's largest cities. There are also opportunities to leverage recent adjustments to trade patterns between Ireland, the UK mainland, and Europe to support rail freight flows between the island's south coast ports and the European mainland. So I guess that would mostly be referring to Rosslare Europort. That's the nearest major port to the European mainland. If you want to get to like France from Ireland, probably take a ferry from Rosslare. Future rail freight services within the island of Ireland are likely to be most viable when there is a sufficient critical mass of cargo movements in terms of tons lifted. In general, this means rail freight is likely to be competitive in corridors that support at least 1 million tons per annum of road freight covering distances over 100 kilometers. Yeah. So rail freight is more successful in longer distance journeys. Just because, there's the process of loading and unloading a train, which takes time. It's not like a truck where you can just hook a container up to a cab and go. And even then, when the train gets to its destination, it's going to have to go onto a truck for the last few kilometers or miles, or whatever. This suggests the greatest potential for intermodal rail freight will focus on routes between Dublin and the largest cities of the island of Ireland, while the greatest potential for outbound flows is from the northwest to the south coast ports. Really? So, oh, okay. That's interesting. Well, maybe they'll go into more details. Dublin Port will play a key role in helping grow rail freight in Ireland. The 2040 Dublin Port Master Plan plans for growth through consolidating the existing estate and expanding on the Poolbeg Peninsula. Rail connectivity to the current port area is poor. Part of the railway runs on and across busy roads, creating significant conflicts with road traffic, and there is currently no rail connectivity to Poolbeg. These challenges will need to be addressed to realise the objective of growing rail freight in Ireland to reduce road congestion and decarbonise the transport system. Yeah, that says it all, really. There's not much to contribute there. When it comes to moving freight from road to rail, it's a bit of a no-brainer, and they seem to be very aware of that. There's not really any half measures being. Well, we'll see with the recommendations, but at least they're not considering half measures like those proxy loop upgrades. They're saying we need to get these stations going in the ports, and then we need to make those depots across the Midlands as well as on the other ports so that it can be a viable transport option. Strategic options. To grow rail freight in Ireland, the reviews considered the following. Rail freight needs to be price competitive with road freight, and it needs to connect major freight producers and customers together in a reasonable time. This means the railway needs to connect seamlessly to Ireland's busiest ports and connect with inland rail freight terminals that serve the island's largest populations and industrial areas. This also means ports connected with the railway should enable the load-on and load-off cargo movements. Although it is noted that in some European countries, increased levels of roll-on roll-off cargo movements are being handled via rail also, which warrants consideration in Ireland. And I think, I don't know how much, yeah, I'll be, yeah, I'm not really sure. I think just reading those little Wikipedia articles, roll on, roll off, seems like a faster and better option, but I'm not sure if that's, if that'll cost a lot more. And then you're also requiring the port that the cargo originates from to load them in a manner where they can be rolled off. You need someone else to do the roll on part before you can do the roll off, but a combination of both I think would be good so you can facilitate both. Rail freight must enable seamless movements between ports and inland terminals. This means key freight corridors must have the capacity to accommodate freight services and minimize the conflicts with other rail services. Or other rail users, sorry. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, you want freight to be able to just move without getting stuck behind commuter or passenger services because freight is often time sensitive. I mean, it depends on what the freight is, but time sensitive freight is often more valuable. And if you can provide a fast and reliable service to that freight, which it doesn't need to stop at stations, so giving it little like bypasses and stuff would certainly encourage the use of it for more time sensitive cargo. Rail freight should be provided with access to decarbonized forms of railway traction. That's what I've been saying for this entire time. Electrify everything, electric locomotives on every part of the network. I think it's a no-brainer. To me, it is a no-brainer. Dual track, electrify everything. Because you're going to have to do it eventually anyway. Just get it over and done with now. Many of the interventions outlined earlier in this chapter will support rail freight. These include developing a new railway to link to Foynes, reinstating the railway between Claremorris and Athenry to enable rail freight in the northwest to access the southeast/west and midwest while avoiding the busy Dublin-Cork line and the need to reverse at Kildare. Reinstating the railway between Rosslare and Waterford. While there is currently no rail freight traffic from Rosslare Airport, in the longer term this port could be developed to accommodate load-on, load-off movements, or lift-on, lift-off. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know, because there is a train station at Rosslare Airport. I don't know why they don't do any rail freight. I feel like that's a really easy improvement to make. Because there's like a train station there. You can go there pretty easily on the train. Reinstating the railways between Athlone, Mullingar, Portadown, and adding capacity between Dublin and Mullingar. This will provide alternative routes from between Dublin and the north and west, avoiding intercity routes. Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, because those intercity routes are going to be the busiest in terms of passenger rail, and if you can skirt the rail freight around them, it might be a slightly less direct route for the rail freight, but it means they don't have to stop and they don't get stuck behind passenger services, and that's only gonna make it more attractive. Adding capacity in corridors used by rail freight today, and that could be used in the future, including Dublin Athlone, Dublin Drogheda, and Limerick Waterford. Yeah, I mean, you can't just plan for now, you have to plan for the future as well. but I think those are pretty reasonable suggestions as well. Dual track everything, as I keep saying. Considering opportunities to better connect other ports to the railway where it runs close to ports such as Merino Point near Cove. Is this another situation where the rail, there's a station very close by but not actually at it? With the airports. Let's have a look. Alright, so yeah, we have Merino Point here, which seems to be some kind of port. And there is a rail, the Cove commuter rail goes right past it here. But doesn't stop. I mean, yeah, that's such an easy, just make a little, oh look, like there's so much empty space right here even. Let's make a little spur out, build a depot, you're good to go. That would literally, oh my god, you could probably build that in a couple of months. Easy. I mean, you'd be competing with the commuter service, but that's not massively frequent. You could definitely squeeze in a few rail freight services between it. Additionally, there will need to be enhancements to current ports and inland terminals, and the development of new inland terminals to serve the island's largest industrial areas. While it is not the role of this review to recommend specific locations for these terminals, it is considered that at least one terminal should be developed for the largest cities on the island of Ireland, ideally at locations with good road access and where the railway is well suited to accommodating freight traffic. Further assessment will be needed to establish ideal locations for these terminals. To serve these terminals, there would need to be an increase in freight rolling stock capacity, both locomotives and wagons. Yeah, well, yeah, I'd say there's not many of them left if it's only what 0.3 cubic tons of freight per year. The reviews considered options for improving connections to the port of Belfast and Rinnaskiddy. In these cases, it was found that developing new rail links would be very costly and disruptive and would encourage freight traffic to use parts of the railway that are already quite congested. Alternative options for Belfast include developing an inland terminal to the southwest of the city, and alternative options for Rinnaskiddy include connecting to Merino Point near Cove. The review has also analysed the economics of rail freight in Ireland and established that track access charges, which are reportedly among the highest in Europe, present a major barrier to growth. Analysis undertaken for this review suggests that bringing these charges closer to levels that are typically levied in the EU should help stimulate growth in rail freight in the relatively short term. Okay. I mean, yeah, that's what I mentioned before. Even signing like contracts where, the Iarnród Éireann says, okay, we'll lower the levies for you if you promise to put this amount of your freight on rails and take this much away from roads. Recommendations. To grow the island's rail freight industry and support the freight objectives of this review, both jurisdictions should develop plans to develop a sustainable solution for first mile, last mile rail freight access for Dublin Port. Without this connection, there are limited options for growing rail freight. Yeah, you can't just put it like kind of nearby, because then you have to truck it in and out. And that's just gonna, like, even if it's small distance, it will massively increase costs. You have to get it as close as possible, and that means getting it into the port so it can be loaded directly on and off the train. Reduce track access charges for freight services. These charges are very high compared to other European railways, but could be reduced through support/government subsidy to stimulate demand for rail freight. Yeah, in the short term, it's a good solution. And once the demand is there, you can. I mean, even if you keep it low, with higher demand and higher traffic, then you're going to be just generating more revenue anyway. But yeah, you could definitely reduce it in the short term to encourage them to get onto the rails. Strengthen rail connectivity to the island's busiest ports where links are feasible, and improve access to ports that are currently underserved by rail freight, including Foynes for Limerick, Waterford, Marina Point for Cork, and Rosslare Europort in the longer term, where load on, load off operations are feasible here, or in the shorter term, following analysis of the feasibility of roll on, roll off rail freight. Yeah, roll on, roll off. I'd like to see some more roll on, roll off. Develop a network of inland terminals close to major cities in the rail network, especially where there is good access to major roads / motorways, limited impact on communities and passenger traffic, and good access to industrial clusters. Potential locations for new terminals include the Upper Bann area for Northern Ireland, Limerick Junction, a location north of Cork, Athenry for Galway, Sligo, and west of Dublin. But yeah, Athenry is definitely a good location. I mean, it's basically the centre of the whole island. It's, it's right in the middle, so it's not too far from anything else. It would certainly be a really good location for inland terminals. I mean, there was a plan. I mean, obviously it never happened, but it was proposed, I don't know, decades ago now, to make Athlone the capital of Ireland instead of Dublin to just because of its central location. Never happened, of course. Athlone isn't that big of a town. It would be kind of strange to make it the capital city when it's so much smaller than Dublin. But I mean, there's plenty of European countries where the capital city isn't the largest city, or even the second or third largest city, such as Switzerland. So I'll show you now. The capital of Switzerland is Bern, but Zurich is much bigger, and I think Geneva is bigger as well. Actually, we can check. Hold on a sec. Fuck. Here we go. Yeah, Zurich is the biggest, then Geneva, then Basel, and then Lausanne. So Bern, the capital city, is the fifth largest city in Switzerland. So it's, Athlone isn't exactly a city, but it shows that it is definitely possible to put your capital city elsewhere. Yeah, Athlone is a decent sized town, but I don't know. I don't think it's really well, not right now. It's not cut out to be a capital city, but if you developed it enough, for sure. There's plenty of capital cities as well where they've been gonna built it from scratch, like Astana in Kazakhstan. This is a constructed city. It was built to be the capital city. Like originally, there was nothing there. I think they're doing something similar in Myanmar. Uh, Yangon, I think, was the capital city, but they moved it inland here, and it's a constructed city as well. Anyway, let's get back to the review. These interventions will enable freight services to operate on routes that avoid many busy intercity routes, as shown in light blue in figure 17. Well, let's have a look then. This is... I wonder where this is. That looks like it's carrying wood. Or could those be those, like kind of cargo buckets? Looks like it might be wood. I don't know. Okay, so we'll start like usual from the top and work our way down, but this time it doesn't start in Northern Ireland really. Well, Portadown, there's a proposed inland terminal. Then that line from Portadown down to Mullingar, of course, which would be excellent for commuter services, but also really valuable for freight. That'd be a whole new railway with passing loop upgrades instead of dual track because they're silly like that. Then, I mean, this route here, all these routes in Dublin already exist, but they would be encouraged to carry more freight than they currently do. Although I think well, I mean, yeah, you need to get to Dublin Port, but I think you need to be mindful of passenger services in the area as well. Then from Maynooth out to Mullingar, dual track, yes please. And then Mullingar to Athlone, new track, not dual, it should be. And then Athlone, all the best here for sure. They're encouraging future freight routes in these areas. And well, there's already inland terminals in Ballina and Westport. So getting the freight trains out there would be good. Loop upgrades, which I'm not keen on, but sure look. And then that line from Claremars to Athenry, be new line, but with passing loop upgrades, it should really be dual track. Then a new inland terminal in Athenry, that'd be good. And then also, sorry, I missed this. There's proposed port investment in Dublin to really improve the rail infrastructure in the port there, because it's not the best at the moment. Then this route from Dublin all the way down to Cork, they'd be encouraging more freight on there, although I think it would benefit from having what was that? There was that proposed line from Hazelhatch to Port Arlington, an extra line. Having those two lines would definitely help in alleviating some of the pressure on the network, competing like between passenger and freight. Then Limerick to Limerick Junction dual track upgrade. I mean, that's needed. Yeah, they've been saying that in a lot of parts of this report, review. Then some port investment in Foynes and a line out there. Single tracked with loop upgrades, but it should be. Or sorry, I keep calling them loop upgrades. They're called passing loops. But they really should just dual track it all. Then some passing loops from Limerick Junction to Waterford. Yeah, I mean, it should be dual track, but it's something they're acknowledging that there's going to be extra traffic on the route. And then that new line from, no, I think it's reinstated from Waterford to Wexford, and then connecting it to Rosslare. And then also investing in Marina Point in just by Cove. Oh, also building an inland terminal at Cork and Limerick Junction. And then what's this? Maynooth or M3 Parkway? It's between the two. It's hard to tell. Oh, Sligo as well. Didn't spot that one. Future inland terminal in Sligo. That'll be good, yeah. Excellent. Case study New Zealand. Oh, hell yeah. Let's get into this then. Alright, so case study New Zealand. New Zealand is a good comparison as well, because it's about the same size as Ireland in terms of population and then also landmass, and it's also an island nation, but it's two islands. Well, two main islands instead of just one. But it's a good comparison to make. New Zealand is an island nation with a similar population to Ireland, but is more isolated from its nearest neighbours. Yeah, they're a lot more isolated. Even it's like thousands of kilometers away from Australia. Like you think of them as being right beside each other, but like if you let me measure this distance here. Oops, sorry. Measure distance. Yeah, almost 2,000 kilometers away. You know, it's its nearest neighbor, but they're really far away. Anyway, as in Ireland, rail freight in New Zealand is used for moving imports and exports to and from major ports, as well as carrying bulk commodities such as logging for export. Kiwi Rail, I like that a lot. A state-owned enterprise, manages 4,000 kilometers of rail network and operates both freight and passenger services. The network is split into two parts, one on the North Island and the other on the South Island. The South Island is significantly less densely populated, especially down the way south of it. Both islands are connected by the Inter-Islander ferry service, which can carry rail vehicles. Yeah, that's good. The rail freight network outside of the cities is largely dedicated to freight. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Outside their major cities, the population density is really quite low. That's curious actually that the Inter Islander ferry can carry rail vehicles. I wonder if they have a train service that operates via the ferry. I know in Italy they have a night train. Let me see here. Goes from like Rome to Palermo all the way down, but uh, this part here, what's it? The island of Sicily and the mainland aren't connected by any bridges, so the train goes onto a ferry and then crosses and then goes back onto the rails. And you stay on the train during that. I think you can actually get off and walk around the ferry, but it's like a night train, so generally you kind of stay on it. That's a train journey I want to take as well at some point, just because it's unique. There's not many uh, train carrying ferries anymore in Europe. I think there's still one between Sweden and Germany, but it's just for freight, really. Ever since the Øresund Bridge was built, all the trains just go through Denmark. Rail freight's mode share in New Zealand is much higher than in Ireland. In 2017-2018, rail freight's mode share was 11.5% for all goods and much higher in coal, paper, dairy, and meat products. Kiwi Rail operates more than 900 freight trains per week, around 130 per day. That's a lot, wow. While rail's freight share has remained steady in recent years, there are concerns the industry will stagnate without intervention. The government considers rail an essential part of the freight industry, providing resilience through offering an alternative transport option for importers and exporters. Investing in restoring the rail freight network is one of two strategic investment priorities in the recently published 2021 Rail New Zealand Plan, which sets a framework for delivering a resilient and reliable rail network. Oh, if that's not too long, maybe I could do some videos about that as well. The New Zealand Rail Plan identifies several challenges that could hold back growth of rail freight. While some of these are external to the industry, such as COVID, there are many operational restrictions and gaps in electrification across the network. To address these challenges, the government has committed to invest in, it's a strange sentence, a longer-term sustainable program of maintenance and renewals, and a program of intergenerational replacement of locomotives, inter-islander ferries, wagons, and shunts, and modernization of maintenance facilities reaching end of life. And I feel like that should kind of just be invested in anyway. You want to keep your trains running smoothly, and the maintenance facilities, even just for safety reasons, should be kept up to date. You don't want them rotting with, people working inside of them with heavy machinery. Funding for these investments will come through the National Land Transport Programme under the new planning and funding framework with support from the Crown and track users. The first tranches of funding have already been committed to a range of projects including core asset maintenance, intergenerational asset replacement of rolling stock, and inter-islander ferries. Thanks to recent investment, some ports have experienced significant growth in rail freight demand. For example, the Lyttelton Port Company saw significant growth in demand and subsequent rail freight services, with weekly services increasing from 2 to 3 per week in 2016 to 16 per week in 2020. That's a lot, especially for 2020. The port estimates that this takes 120 heavy vehicles off the road each day. That is good. That's a big difference. The port also notes that customers see rail freight as a key component of reducing the carbon emissions associated with their products. Oh, absolutely. A new weekday rail service between Auckland and Christchurch is also being launched to help New Zealand businesses recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. New Zealand shows it is possible for rail freight to compete and succeed on an island network. I believe it for sure. A service between Auckland and Christchurch. Yeah, so that would require the ferry. Is that I assume it's a freight service and not a passenger service. But I wonder if they have any passenger services that go across the ferry. Let's find out. Let's have a look. I'll get rid of this distance thing. Let's see, I want to go from Wellington to, is that Blenheim? No. Maybe I'll check out the Kiwi Rail website. Okay, so it seems like I tried to select a train and then depart from Wellington and arrive at South Island, but it doesn't seem like it's possible. Tried adding in the ferry thing and then it just wants me to book a ferry service. There's only one in each direction, which is Wellington to Picton and Picton to Wellington, which is this little town here. It's where all the ferries go. There is a train station there, so I guess you could take a train there, hop on a ferry, and then take another train from Wellington. But you can't, there's no through route by train. I had a look at Kiwi Rail. It seems like it's mostly for freight with some luxury rail services. But anyway, that's it for this section, freight. Next time we'll have a look at customer experience. I think it's the last section in the recommendations. Yeah, after that we'll move on to chapter 5. Excellent. Well, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one.